as much as possible, you prevent your employees from holding cash for you. And if they have to hold cash, then you have to go to the bank the same day. That's the total foolproof. But other things you can put in to if they have to collect cash.
Today we have Barrister Ayobami Iyiola. I don't want to call your middle name, so because so that I won't bother you.
Yes, that's Dafe.
Okay,
so the protection is all Dafe again. So okay. I'm also partly Deltan. So
okay, yes. I want to say is that Benin name because that's I think Benin.
Yeah, that's an Urobo name.
Urobo,
actually.
Okay, that's interesting. Yes. I actually grew up with some Urobo guys.
I bet they were fantastic.
Yes, they were actually nice. So more usually they put other people's needs above their own. So that's what I noticed.
Yeah, sounds more like
that's something I'm trying to also do as well. What are some documents a business owner can get from their employee from the legal perspective? Let's say because we know this country people can run away with your money. What are some documents or some things you need to do before you even employ them in the first place?
Okay, so going right into it. Firstly, I will tell you that if you're a business owner, you should have some controls in place, and employees should not be handling your funds. For example, you should be in the advent of technology where you have transfers into bank accounts, you have a POS and everything. So as much as possible, you prevent your employees from holding cash for you. And if they have to hold cash, then you have to go to the bank the same day. That's the total foolproof. But other things you can put in to if they have to collect cash and keep cash, other things you can put in through is mostly the employment agreement. Now it needs to be a standard agreement. You have to introduce clauses that introduces things like a guarantor or a referee, and having someone else, a third party, take responsibility for that person in case he absconds or it's just not, you can't find it, his next of kin and everything. And now these people have to be verified. Now, most companies will tell you that they want someone that works in a company, like a standard company or a government service, so that someone that's the likelihood that your guarantor will also disappear would be slim, Now, all these are not total foolproof, that's why I say the best thing is never allow your employees handle funds. Cash. Let it always be the transfer to designated accounts of the company, or try e-banking with technology has helped in advancing so thus far. So apart from the employment agreement, whereby you can just introduce the guarantors, have a code of conduct, put in things that if peradventure they run away and you have to arrest them and take them to court, you have clauses to rely on, Yes, naturally rely on the fact that yes, a fraud also took place. But you also want to put measures there for example, damages and when it gets to court and everything. So a good employment agreement should be in place. As much as possible, there shouldn't be anything that has to do with employee holding cash. Now, if you permit me, I'll also say that this generally, my answer to questions are general information, by the way. It's a general advice. And don't take it like you have legal advice. No. Because each case to case is different from case to case based on the facts of each case. So you might take a general advice and your specific case might be different from general advice. In the law court, we call something judicial precedent, which says that judges rely on, for example, a high court will rely on the Supreme Court judgment that has similar facts. So when a lawyer goes to court, it cites a higher court like, a higher court has ruled like this, so judge is supposed to rule like this. But another smart lawyer will come and they call something distinguishing cases. He will tell you that, my lord, even though the High Court has held particular judgment on a particular case, there's also some similarities between this case and that case. So you will not point out the similarity. So law is on a case-by-case basis. It's not a free-for-all fitting into all categories. So whatever I'm giving you today, if you have a case-by-case advice, I'll advise you to go and see a lawyer who will be able to distill it for that. So it's just general information I'm giving thus far. Yeah. So I think I should give that caveat before we continue. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that clarification. So you actually mentioned the guarantor, but according to the law, if anything happened, am I, as a business owner, can I actually hold the guarantor responsible?
Yes, the guarantor has to be, he has specifically signed that I'll be held. No, it's like a collateral. When you take a loan, and they'll take a collateral. So this is you signing off to be responsible for someone else. So now, unlike these loan sharks, small complaints we have nowadays, that you just find out that overnight that you are a guarantor. You don't remember signing the paper. You don't remember. No, that's wrong. But so that's why you have to verify the guarantor, not just someone signing. See, if possible, meet him, know where he works, know where he lives, and your employees also know where they live. If possible, the next of kin know them. That way, there's certain that the person that signed off on it is responsible for the person. Yeah.
Let's say, for example, I own a supermarket and I have an employee. How can I protect myself against anything that goes wrong with the employee personally, so that it won't affect my own business?
Okay, so there are two ways. If it's a standard business and a contract is involved, there's some clauses you should have in your contract. One, you always have a mutual hold harmless, which basically states that this is the extent of your liability in case something happens. For example, if there's a contractor's employee is injured, on your site or your property, or dies on your property, for example, or equipment is damaged, that mutual hold harmless says that, basically it says that, when you come to my site, even though you come to work in my site, you're responsible for your employees. So if anything happens to your employees, you won't be responsible. If injury or death, you won't be responsible. If your equipment you're bringing to site gets damaged, you won't be responsible. So also both parties. So I won't be responsible for your own employees. You won't be responsible for my own employees and my assets already. So those are clauses that people find. Sometimes they will tell you that even though the clause is there, you will only be responsible when it's a case of gross negligence or willful misconduct. That means if, for example, I send my employees to work in your site, and there's a hole which you refuse to cover, that's more like a willful misconduct, and it can also be a gross negligence on your part. So you can include that in. But if it's generally something that happens which you didn't even know about, then it should be held responsible. Also, most businesses should always have something they call a company representative. So meaning that company representative is the one that represents the company. So there might be other employees there, but you can only hold the company representative for anything that's been done. So that way you limit liability to one particular person, maybe your manager or something. So if another person asks anything funny, you remind the other person, remember the only person we told you that you should deal with is the company representative. Then also, most transactions have, in contract also has what they call limitation of liability. So if anything goes wrong, you want to cap your liability to a particular, it might be 20% of the contract sum, it might be 100% of the contract sum. So if it goes beyond that, you're not responsible for that. That way you have capped your liability under a particular threshold that you think you can afford. Then generally, insurance is very important. Your employees, liability insurances, if an employee does something that will have to liability towards you, the insurance can pay for it. Then if it talks about small projects and other things, you can also have all risk insurance. Anything that goes wrong, insurance takes care of it. And other forms of insurance that covers liability. So it's important that insurance is a very key thing that unlike we have in the UK, that it's quite important. Here we still trying to get to know the importance of insurance. It even goes down to your house, your wristwatch. You can insure it. You can your house against burglary, against a comprehensive one that covers burglary, flood, everything. Armed robbery, everything. You can have insurance. So like we're having cars insurance also. Let's put the third party, but it's comprehensive also. Comprehensive can cover every single thing. So insurance is very important. Then contracting must be very tight, so that way you can limit your liability. Imagine if in a contract liability clause is 25% of the contract sum, and maybe the contract is a 100 million naira contract, 25% of the 25 million naira. So if by adventure your employees go about and incur 50 million damage or claim, you know that you can only pay 25%. Yeah, so that's it. So that we have, it's a cap to what the employees can incur on your behalf. Yeah, so basically contracting insurance quite important in capping your liability. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. I've actually learned a lot. So for a business owner that wants to separate himself from the business, what are some things they can put in place to do that?
Okay. So basically, under the law, a complaint is a person on its own. So you can sue it and it can be sued. So the way I'm regarded as a person, if I have a complaint, it's supposed to be a different person. Yes, I am the promoter of the complaint, I'm the owner of the complaint, and I might be responsible for it to a certain extent. Now, the way you do it, you separate both your person from the complaint as a person. I wrote an article for Applied Journal of Business and Economics, New York, and 2020, I believe, and it was on complaint. I think it was titled "Complaints' Right to Own Nationality," and it was based on the EU law, and it's still valid to us in Nigeria because each complaint can choose nationalities, can choose because it's a person on its own. So for you to own a complaint, I used to advise people that will be great tomorrow need to start from the beginning, in the sense that when you're not setting up a complaint, also know that your assets of a complaint is different from your personal assets. It has to be divided into two. And that's where it comes into things like they call trust. Now, most rich people have trust in place. Trust in place means that, for example, I set up a trust, I buy a house, I buy it in the name of the trust. That's why you hear some people have a house in London, but if you check the papers, it's not the name of the person. The name of the person is still like trust complaint. That way, if anything happens to the complaint, it doesn't affect them personally because the trust owns their assets. Now, why did you do that? Because usually, even though the complaint is about a different person, usually when the bank wants to give you a loan, for example, in Nigeria, it will at least ask for a personal guarantee of the owners. You set up a complaint today, you need 100 million naira loan from a bank. They won't give you 100 naira loan because most likely you never have a collateral to even meet up with the loan demands of the loan, provisions of the loan. So what happens? They'll tell you that, oh, since no collateral in place, you seem to be a very rich man. Why don't you put your assets into it? So that way, they make you sign a personal guarantee, meaning that if there's a default on a loan by the company, the personal guarantee takes care of it. So yes, sometimes you are forced to do that because you need that money to make your business. But that way, you have also already joined your personality into the company. And when there's a default by the company, they go after your personal assets. But if you have a trust in place, that trust is not in your personal, it's a trust complaint, not in your personal. It's not more even your personal assets again. So even if you have a trust in place, it's only the company's the assets in your personal name that the bank can go after. They can't go after what in your trust. So that way, even if the company folds up, your assets are still in place. So I'm telling you that every millionaire or billionaire in Nigeria needs, most of them have this because they found a way of separating their personal assets from their company. So if anyone goes under, personal assets in trust are secured. And usually that trust might have it in names of their wife, names of their children. This is a trust complaint. We're paying taxes on the assets there and everything. So it's also a person on its own, different from a personality. But that way the assets are well secured, and anything that comes after them by virtue of personal guarantees, cannot touch the trust. So that way you have a total separation of your person from the company as a person. The trust is a different person totally. For example, let me give you an example now. No, it's a maritime company. You have ships. A maritime company that has ships most likely won't want to register the ship under a particular company. For example, I have a company ABC Limited. I buy a ship, EF. When I'm registering that ship, I want to register the ship under ABC company. I'll register a whole entity for that ship. Why? Because when all the assets of the company are different, registered differently, if anything happens to one, it doesn't affect the other company. Because under the law, they are distinct and they're a separate complaint from each other. So that way, when we have multiple complaints, that way we are securing ourselves individually. And we're not putting all your risk in one box. So one can fail, go bankrupt. That's fine. But the other one is still standing. That way, you're separating all your assets and keeping them off each other. So if any liability occurs, you're safe, basically.
When can a business owner be actually held liable? Because you mentioned it. When can a business owner be held liable?
If you sign a personal guarantee using your personal assets, then you can be held liable. Because the banks too are smart. They want to have enough collateral. Contractors or companies that do business with you want to see your value in case it goes wrong. So they always want to add as much as possible to it. But so as long as you pledge in your personal assets, then you are liable. So but the best thing I keep saying is this: from the beginning of the complaint, separate it. It's more difficult to do that later, because if you are doing it later, if, for example, I pledge my personal assets to a bank, for me to avoid paying my loans to the bank, for example, I believe I create a trust account and move it from my personal self into that trust. Then that's you becoming fraudulent, because you're doing that as a reaction to avoid liabilities for something you have pledged yourself for. So what's better to do it from the beginning when it's clean, and in law they say if it comes with equity must come with clean hands, So come with clean hands from the beginning and separate from the beginning so that you won't have that issues. And you can still do it later as much as you don't have liabilities you have pledged your assets to. Once you have liabilities you have pledged your assets to, then at that moment it's pretty late, because the bank will tell you are quite fraudulent in your actions. Yeah.
So as a business owner, when you are signing contracts, and I know you've dealt with a lot of contracts, what's the most important part?
Yeah, there are quite a number. We spoke about insurance earlier. We also spoke about contracting. We have to have a nice contract in place. Then a good part is taxes. Most of us don't factor in taxes in our negotiation. For example, now I've done my costing. What I would sell a product is 10 naira. I know that when I sell product 10 naira, I'll make a profit of 5 naira. We always forget to include the element of tax in it in our transactions, and we just wait one day. You don't even think about it. Then one day the tax man comes and knocks on your door and find out that you're actually making a loss because you didn't factor in your taxes into it. So you have the VAT, you have the withholding tax. VAT usually is always 7.5%. Withholding tax is always 5 or 10%, depending on the services. Then you have some specific industry taxes. If you're in maritime, you have to pay an extra maybe 2% cabotage. If you're in oil and gas, you have to pay an extra 1% NCDF fund and tax. So there's some taxes based on some particular sectors you are in. So you need to have a strong knowledge of taxes. And secondly, there are some mistakes we do in taxation. Now, this is not to tell you to avoid paying taxes. Let's just tell you that you need to have a contracting principle in place. I would say a caveat now is always talk to your tax man. I'm not a tax expert, but this is based on my knowledge of contracting over the years. And for example, if you are doing a contract that involves something that happening outside Nigeria and inside Nigeria, sometimes we lump it up together and start paying taxes for things we're not even supposed to pay for, because maybe some parts happen abroad. So my general knowledge of taxation tells me that if something happens and stops abroad, that scope shouldn't be included in taxes in Nigeria. But usually we do a tax with a foreign company and we just lump everything together. And when the tax man comes, it looks at the figure and taxes you on things that didn't even happen in Nigeria. So, but it's different when something happens in Nigeria and something happens in UK and ends in Nigeria. Yes, you can pay taxes on all. That's it down to contracting, not a great knowledge of contracting. So usually in situations like that, you're supposed to have a out of country scope contract different than in country contract different, because technically they can be regarded as two different contracts. So taxation is very important. Insurance is very important. And regulatory compliance. Know the sectors that affects the compliance agencies that affect your sector. For example, if you are dealing with food, you have to rely with NAFDAC. If you are dealing in oil and gas, you have to go with the DPR or the NUPRC, they call them. And NPC, you have to deal with them. But dealing in maritime, you have to deal with NIMASA. So there are always licenses and permits you require. So it's important that you know that, because honestly, you can shut down your business. You can get hefty fines for not having those licenses in place. You can even go to prison for that, depending on what the law sets in that sector. So those are very important. Of course, like I always say, contracting is very important. Have your contract in place, well drafted to cover all your risks and liabilities. Some you have to, some of them during negotiations you have to carry them on. Like, oh, okay, no choice, I have to accept this risk. but have them at the back of your mind and try as much as possible to mitigate them or have limiting factors that would limit your liabilities as much as possible. Yeah.
So you actually mentioned tax. So, and I want us to talk a little bit about it. So let's assume a business owner has not been paying tax for his business. Is there any point at which he will be held liable personally to pay off all those tax in case probably the business went under, but the business had made a lot of money in the past? So is there any case where the business owner will be held personally liable for the tax?
Honestly, it's a yes or a no. A yes in the case that the business owner can be proved to be quite fraudulent and, if possible, diverted the complaint's assets into his own personal assets. How CAC is structured now is once you are registering a new complaint, automatically you are getting a TIN number. That's a tax identification number. And you go to the bank, you open the bank account. And I always tell small business owners, if you're doing anything personal, do not use your complaint account, because for everything you do in your complaint account is taxable. So if you say a complaint thing, use the complaint account. If it's a personal thing, use your personal account. It's two different things. There are taxes you have to pay. Most people think because they are small businesses, they can always say the tax man is interested in their small naira and kobo. But honestly, it gets to a time whereby you need something and you find out that, so you're going to bring 3 years tax returns, you now find out that you have a hefty tax.
What type of business actually need a lawyer? Is it every business that should actually get a lawyer? Because there are some small businesses that don't actually have the money to, or they think they don't have the money to employ a lawyer. What type of business, or at what point should your business get a lawyer?
I think I know all lawyers will support me on this. I need a lawyer from day one. When you start thinking of setting up a business, you need a lawyer. Even to register a company, you need a lawyer. You might want to trademark your product. You might want to have copyright. You might want to have patents. Even confidentiality agreements between you and maybe a partner or something is important. You might have a product that you want to even trademark, and so no one else, will use your trademark, maybe a name you like and everything. So from day one, you need a lawyer because you have to protect your intellectual property and what you want to do with your business, or else people that are street smart, in quotes, we just, use your idea, use your name of a business, and find out that you're on a losing end. I have friends that always say, oh, waiting lawyer, they do self. Just go online, copy a template. And I had a friend that did that. Went to copy a template from America. Regulatory compliance there was American law, American agencies. I was like, dude, you're in Nigeria. You just want to copy and paste a template. I would also advise you to protect your interest from the beginning. Talk to a lawyer. Whatever you want to do, max, the lawyer cannot charge you 100% of the money. Max, he does 10 or thereabout, because now there's a law that's legal remuneration law that tells lawyers how to charge based on each categories. Now, in real estate now, I think the minimum is 10% a lawyer can charge. So now it's a backed up law. So if a lawyer goes beyond 5%, he might lose his license to practice. You have to, it's part of costs you factor into doing your business. An uncle of mine used to say, a doctor, a personal doctor. Everybody needs three persons in their life: a priest or an imam, or depending on the religion you belong, the person presiding. Then also a lawyer. Now they call for gentlemen because they believe that you have to have those three in your corner. A doctor, in case you wake up one morning and the doctor has your history file, he knows about everything about you, so he can just give you quick advice. Then religion, because we all have to know God in one way or the other, and your lawyer knows everything down to if you want to have a will, your next of kin, so he can better protect your interest. Because believe you me, it's cheaper to have a lawyer at the beginning than later when you get into trouble. You pay off your nose to get a lawyer to work. A good example is a friend of mine. He was running a brokerage firm, a maritime brokerage business. So it was between the seller of a ship and the buyer of a ship. He was the middleman. So he brought them together. So technically, he's supposed to get like maybe 10% of the value of the ship as his brokerage fee. But because he didn't have an agreement in place between both of them, those two people did business, and then they gave me a couple. And this guy would have made not less than $1 million, and he lost out on that. And till today, it pains the guy badly because I told my dude, I'm just a phone call away. You get my point. So that's it. We're easy to say that, we don't want to pay a lawyer. At the end of the day, we lose more than the money we have paid a lawyer. So I always advise, no matter how small your business is, I know lawyers will be considerate. They can't charge you beyond your worth, your value. They can't say your business is worth 5,000. They can't tell you to go and bring 300 million naira. You get my point. So that's it. Always have a lawyer willing to pay that money so that you can safeguard your business and safeguard your ideas and safeguard anything you're doing in your company. Yeah. So I always advise get a lawyer.
So for those that don't actually have the funds to actually get a lawyer on full time, is there any other plan they can use? Probably the lawyer will charge them on a project basis. Is there something like that?
Yes. There are various remuneration wise. I mean, I consult for complaints, and basically some of them pay me per job. Some just put me in an annual retainership. So that's it. So you can always do per job or annual retainer or anyway. I mean, just down to negotiation between you and the lawyer. So even some people pay in equity. Like 1% of your complaint. I'm willing to stay with you and build your complaint with you. Just give me a percentage of ownership or something like that. So people pay in equity and other like. So it's down to negotiation with your lawyers actually, but it's also down to what Legal Remuneration Act says. And so the lawyer always want to look at it to make sure that it's within the ambit of the law, so that it won't fall into trouble with the legal disciplinary committee. Yeah.
All right. On a closing note now, what advice do you have for businesses in terms of them being compliant with the law? What advice do you have for them?
First, every business has a sector that has a law governing that sector. So it's important. One, you have a basic idea of what it entails. You have a basic idea of all businesses are supposed to pay tax, some more than the other. So you have to find what you're supposed to pay, factor it in your costing. You want to look at definitely getting a lawyer, because some people do a semester or 2 semester business law and they feel they're lawyers. I have someone that always tell me, "Oh, I know about contract. I know about law." I say, "Sorry, are you a lawyer? Or did you go to law school?" No. So believe me, you don't know law. You think you do. But some people actually build an idea of law over time. But believe me, you still need a lawyer, because a lawyer has spent all his whole life studying it, and he has seen scenarios from beginning to the end. So a lawyer is quite important. So most important thing is, for compliance sake, know the law that governs a particular sector. Know the laws, and stay by it. Most people need licenses and business to practice. Even if you don't local government trade permits, you need it. Down to your tax, down to, like I said earlier, if you're in business has to do with food, NAFDAC will have to start inspecting you several times. If you're in maritime, they have theirs. Oil and gas have theirs. Telecom they have theirs with NCC. National Communication Commission. So each sector has a department of government or agency regulating it. So the first thing you do is get yourself registered with them, get your licenses and permits in order. Even if you are doing transportation Okada business, for example, in Lagos State, they have licenses for that. So you don't just buy two or three Okada and say, "I'm doing courier service." I know that you need to have a license for that. You do need to have a license for that. If not, one day they'll impound your Okada, and that's all. So it's important that you know the laws and the rules guiding a particular sector you are in. And it's always better to factor in any cost of licensing and everything into your product. That way, you know if a product is actually sustainable or not. If, for example, if factoring makes your business, the cost of your doing business will skyrocket, and maybe make a profit from it, then you know that you have to change your line of business. So the first thing to do is investigate, and usually you need a lawyer for that. Most people try to do that, but one way or the other, you can miss one or two things, so you always need a lawyer for that. That's why I say a lawyer is always important for that. Yeah.
Wow, that's an interesting section. That's Barrister Ayobami. He has been giving us a lot of interesting perspective. There are a lot of things you've discussed that I don't personally know before, like a company actually assigning someone to be its representative, and also limiting the amount of liability. I did not actually know that. I did not actually know that. Thank you very much. Is it okay if we leave your contact in the description of the video, probably your email, so that anybody that has a question can actually...
Yes, I would do that. I'll leave my email for you.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Yeah.